She mistook a millionaire investor for the room service waiter. But that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The elevator chimed softly as Maya Tran stepped out onto the 28th floor of the Aurelia Grand Hotel. The hallway gleamed under golden lights, every polished marble tile reflecting her nervous face. In her hands was a silver tray carrying a late-night dinner order. The digital clock above the service desk read 11:36. Her heart sank. She was late again. The corridor smelled faintly of jasmine and linen polish. Behind each door slept the kind of guests she would never meet. In real life, executives, socialites, people whose shoes probably cost more than her entire paycheck. Maya tightened her grip on the tray and whispered, "Room 2803. Please, let this guest be kind tonight." She stopped before the door, adjusted her name tag, and knocked twice. "Room service," she called, her voice shaking slightly. There was a pause, then the sound of footsteps. When the door opened, a tall man in a white shirt stood before her. His sleeves were rolled up, collar unbuttoned, a laptop open behind him on the desk. He looked more like a tired office worker than a guest at a five-star hotel. Maya exhaled in frustration. "You are the evening staff, right? The guest in this room has been waiting almost an hour. You cannot just leave trays lying around. This is not a diner." The man blinked, surprised, then hid a faint smile. "You think I work here?" She frowned, misreading his tone as guilt. "Well, obviously. Who else would be standing in a hotel suite wearing the uniform shirt?" His laugh came low and amused. "Maybe someone who checked in 2 hours ago." Her eyes widened. "Wait, what? You are the guest?" He nodded slowly, still smiling. "Yes, I suppose I am." A wave of heat rushed to her face. "Oh my goodness! I am so sorry, sir." "I thought you looked like a waiter?" he offered, his smile deepening. "It is fine. Honestly, it is kind of refreshing." Maya wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "Please forgive me, sir. The meal is for you." She placed the tray carefully on the table, avoiding eye contact. He watched her movements, the precise, nervous way she arranged every item. "It smells great," he said quietly. "Did you make it?" She shook her head. "No, sir. I just deliver." "R.A." He noticed her hands trembling as she unfolded the napkin. "You are good at this," he said. "You take pride in it." Her cheeks flushed again. "It is my job." He hesitated, sensing something sincere beneath her embarrassment. "Well, thank you, miss?" "Tran. Maya Tran," she said quickly, then turned to leave before she could humiliate herself further. "Wait," he called after her. "You forgot something." She looked back. He held up a small folded note that had fallen from the tray. On it, in her hurried handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for your patience, Maya." Their eyes met. For a second, the hotel noise faded, the hum of the air conditioner, the distant elevator bell, the city beyond the glass. He smiled again, softer this time. "You know, patience is rare these days." Maya, completely flustered, mumbled a final apology and disappeared down the corridor, her footsteps echoing against the marble floor. Inside the room, Ethan Cole, the millionaire investor she had just mistaken for a waiter, turned the note over in his hand. The handwriting was neat but slightly smudged, the ink blotted near the heart of the word patience. He set it beside his untouched dinner and whispered, "Maya Tran." The night outside stretched quiet and endless over New York City, but for the first time in a long while, Ethan found himself smiling at something he could not explain. The morning light slid through the blinds of Maya's small apartment on the edge of Queens. The place smelled faintly of instant coffee and lemon cleaner, a scent she used to trick her mind into feeling organized. Her alarm had rung 30 minutes ago, but she was still sitting at the tiny kitchen table, staring at a stack of overdue bills. The rent notice was printed in red ink. She rubbed her temples and whispered, 2 more shifts and maybe I can cover the electric bill. Her mother's voice floated from the next room, soft but weak. "Maya, did you eat anything before work?" "I will grab something on the way, Mama." she said quickly. The truth was, she had not eaten since last night's mistake at the Aurelia Grand Hotel. She could still see the man's smile, the one she had mistaken for a staff member. She had replayed that moment all night, burying her face in the pillow, mortified. He was probably laughing about it to his friends, she muttered under her breath. Before leaving, she tucked a worn notebook into her bag. It was filled with sketches of cakes, frosting designs, and notes about ingredients she could never afford. On the first page, in her own handwriting, were the words, "Someday, Maya's Morning Bakery." She traced the letters lightly with her thumb, then zipped the bag shut. Outside, the sky hung heavy with clouds. The city was waking up, horns blaring, steam rising from manholes, the smell of roasted chestnuts from a street cart. Maya walked fast, her shoes slapping against the wet pavement. The bus was crowded as always, full of half-asleep commuters clutching paper cups. She balanced her tray case on her knees and stared out the window, her reflection ghostly against the glass. When she reached the hotel, the lobby was already alive with guests. The marble floor gleamed, the chandelier sparkled like morning dew. Maya tightened her ponytail and forced a smile. "You are late again," her supervisor, Mrs. Kendall, hissed as she passed. "Do not let it happen tomorrow, or I will cut your hours." "Yes, Mrs. Kendall," Maya said softly. It was always easier to apologize than to fight back. By noon, her body ached from running trays between rooms. As she crossed the corridor, she spotted a familiar silver laptop bag sitting on a chair near the elevator. Her stomach flipped. Ethan Cole, the mysterious man from last night, was walking toward her, this time wearing a navy suit. He looked completely different, composed and confident, the kind of man who did not blend in anywhere. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You are the waiter," she blurted before she could stop herself, then immediately clapped a hand over her mouth. "I mean guest." "I meant guest," he chuckled quietly. "You can call me Ethan." She froze. "I am sorry again about last night. I thought you were part of the evening staff." "Do not worry," he said. It was actually refreshing. He glanced at the tray in her hands. "You look busy. Still working the night shifts?" "Yes." "And the lunch shifts?" "And sometimes both." "All?" He nodded slowly, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. "That sounds exhausting." "It pays the bills," she replied, forcing a light laugh. Ethan tilted his head. "Do you ever rest?" "Resting is expensive," she said, half joking, half honest. He smiled, then reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper. "You left this behind." She recognized it immediately. The note she had written, "Thank you for your patience." Her heart jumped. "You kept it?" "It made my night less lonely," he said softly. "People forget kindness matters." Maya felt her face warm. "Well, I did not mean to be rude before." "You were not. You reminded me that people still care about doing their jobs right." The elevator dinged. He stepped inside but turned before the doors closed. "I will see you around, Miss Tran." The doors slid shut, leaving Maya staring at her own reflection in the polished metal. Something fluttered in her chest, a strange, quiet hope she did not have time for but could not ignore. That evening, after her shift, she stopped by a small park near the subway station. The sky was painted in streaks of orange and gray. She sat on a bench, pulled out her notebook, and began sketching a new recipe. For the first time in weeks, her hands did not shake. Behind her, the city lights flickered to life one by one. Somewhere across that skyline, a man named Ethan Cole glanced at a smudged note on his desk and wondered why a few handwritten words from a hotel maid could still make him smile. The next afternoon, the Aurelia Grand Hotel pulsed with a steady rhythm of luggage wheels and soft conversation. Maya tied her apron and slipped her worn recipe notebook into the inner pocket of her blazer. She had scribbled measurements before leaving home, cups and tablespoons and baking time for a lemon honey loaf she had never been able to test in a real oven. The hotel staff cafeteria had a small convection oven that burned the edges of everything, but Hope did not care about imperfect tools. Between deliveries, she stopped by the back corridor where the dishwashers took their break. A security guard with tired eyes leaned against the wall, rubbing his knee. Maya handed him a paper cup with warm broth and half a roll saved from a banquet tray. "You should not skip dinner," she said. He smiled, surprised by the small kindness. Her supervisor, Kendall, swept past with a clipboard. Tran, the tasting and salon, 3 needs extra glassware. After that, take a tray to the mezzanine lounge. Yes, I am on it, Maya answered, lifting the crate carefully so the glasses would not clink. When she reached the mezzanine, she froze. Ethan Cole stood near the railing, the city spreading out behind him in slabs of winter light. He was reading something on his phone, unaware of her approach. She set the tray down and cleared her throat softly. Your refreshments, sir. He looked up, and there it was again, that quiet warmth she could not explain. Thank you, Miss Tran. He caught himself, then softened it. Maya. He gestured to the seating area. Do you have a minute? I have 3 minutes before I need to run another tray, she said, then winced. I mean, I would like to, but I am on the clock. Then let me borrow one, he said with a small grin. He pointed to the tiny notepad tucked into her blazer. Is that your recipe book? Heat climbed her neck. Just ideas, nothing special. May I? He asked. She hesitated, then handed it over. He turned the pages with care, pausing at messy sketches of cakes and margin notes about zest and crumb and the way sugar caramelizes if you are patient. On one page, a title was underlined twice, Morning Light. He touched the words as if they were fragile. What is Morning Light? My dream, she said, voice low. A small bakery that opens before sunrise. Simple breads and coffee. Nothing fancy, just honest food that tastes like home. He looked up. It sounds like something people would line up for. She laughed softly. People line up for free champagne in the ballroom, not for a poor girl's cinnamon rolls. His expression turned thoughtful, almost solemn. You are not a poor girl. You are a person with a craft. He closed the notebook and handed it back. What stops you? Rent, tuition. Hospital bills, she said simply. Also, ovens. Ovens are not cheap. He nodded, as if filing the facts away. Thank you for telling me. Her radio crackled. She flinched. I need to go. She lifted the tray, then paused. About last night. Thank you for not embarrassing me. I was not embarrassed, he said. I was grateful. He tapped the folded note in his breast pocket. For this. And for the reminder that patience and pride in work still exist. She hurried off, pulse quickened for reasons that had nothing to do with stairs. Across the city, late that day, Ethan sat in a glass-walled office he had borrowed from the hotel's executive suite. The skyline washed in silver dusk. He placed the note from Maya beside his laptop and stared at it longer than he cared to admit. When his assistant, Claire, appeared in the doorway with a tablet, he spoke without looking up. Extend my stay through the end of the week. I want to see more of the operation. Quietly. Claire nodded. Do you want the general manager to arrange a tour? No tour, Ethan said. I will use the lobby like everyone else. He glanced at the note again. And Claire, look into the staff recognition program. Is there a fund for employee development? There is a small stipend, Claire said. It has not been used in months. Find out why, he said. That night, after the last banquet trays were stacked and the vacuum lines were drawn in perfect stripes across the lobby carpet, Maya slipped into the staff cafeteria with a small bowl of batter she had mixed by hand. She poured it into a dented loaf pan and slid it into the humming oven, then stood with her back against the counter, counting heartbeats. The air filled with lemon and butter and the faintest whisper of honey. A dishwasher peeked in. Something smells like mornings used to smell, he said, smiling. Maya sliced the loaf while it was still too warm and passed around narrow pieces on napkins. People ate with their fingers, closing their eyes for a second, surprised by how softness can live inside a hard day. She saved the neatest slice for the tray headed to the mezzanine lounge and, on impulse, added a handwritten tent card. Lemon Honey Loaf by Maya Tran. When she set the plate down, Ethan was the only guest left in the lounge. Papers were spread before him, rows of numbers and timelines and renderings of a lobby that might one day look different. He noticed the extra plate. What is this? A test, she said, suddenly shy. Lemon honey. I am still learning. He took a bite. The crust cracked, the center tender, bright with citrus. He chewed carefully, then set the fork down. It tastes like its name. Too sweet? She asked. Balanced, he said. Honest. He looked at her, and the look held. You should not keep this in a back room. A flush rose in her cheeks. Thank you. She gathered her tray, ready to flee the intensity of being seen. He stopped her with a gentle question. If Morning Light opened tomorrow, what would be the first thing you would sell? She did not need to think. A cinnamon roll that sticks to your fingers, and coffee strong enough to make you brave. Ethan smiled, something decisive settling in his eyes. That is exactly what a tired city needs before the Sunday. As she walked away, Maya felt the oddest sensation, like a door in her chest had opened a few inches to let in air. She did not know that behind her, Ethan folded her tent card and slid it into the same pocket as the patient's note. 2 small plants, taking root in a life that had almost forgotten how to grow. 2 days later, the Aurelia Grand Hotel shimmered under the pale glow of morning. The conference rooms buzzed with preparations for an upcoming investor review. Maya hurried through the hallway carrying fresh linens, unaware that her small act of kindness had reached far higher floors than she could imagine. Ethan Cole sat at a long glass table in the executive lounge, reviewing reports. Yet his thoughts kept drifting to the taste of lemon and honey and the quiet confidence in Maya's voice. When the hotel's general manager finished his presentation, Ethan closed the folder and said calmly, "Before we continue, I want to meet some of the staff on the floor. The ones who make this place run." The manager blinked. "Sir, that is not standard procedure for an investor. Neither is good hospitality if it stays only in boardrooms," Ethan replied. Later that afternoon, while Maya polished silverware in the banquet area, a small group entered behind her. She turned and froze. Ethan stood among them, wearing a visitor's badge instead of a tailored suit jacket. He smiled slightly, acknowledging her surprise. "Miss Tran, this is the tour I was promised." Her heart jumped. "You should have told me you were coming down here." "Then it would not be a real visit," he said. "I wanted to see what the guests never see." The general manager introduced each staff member quickly, but Ethan lingered near Maya's station. He asked about her duties, her training, the challenges she faced. She answered carefully, glancing nervously at Kendall, who hovered nearby. When the group moved on, Kendall leaned in and whispered harshly, "Do not get comfortable, Tran. People like him do not remember names like ours." Maya bit her tongue and returned to work, but Ethan had heard the words. That evening, he appeared again, alone this time, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the lobby cafe. "You skipped dinner again," he said, handing her one. She hesitated, then accepted it. "Thank you, but I should not be standing around talking during my shift." "You can talk for 5 minutes," he said gently. "Call it a professional inquiry." She laughed despite herself. "All right, Mr. Cole, what is the inquiry? Tell me why you stay. You could work anywhere, with your drive." She looked at the reflection of the chandelier in her coffee. "Because this is where my mother gets her medication. The hospital discount depends on my hours here. Because my sister is still in school. Because dreams need bills paid first." Her honesty hit him harder than he expected. "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret means I had another choice," she said quietly. "I only have forward." He nodded slowly. "Forward," he repeated. "That is a good direction." "Oh." For a moment they stood there in comfortable silence, the hum of distant voices filling the space between them. Maya finally broke the stillness. "You said you were here for an investor review. Did you find what you were looking for?" His eyes softened. "Maybe I just did." She smiled, uncertain what he meant, but something about his tone made her pulse quicken. Later that night, as she logged out of her shift, she found an envelope tucked beneath her time card. Inside was a note in clean handwriting. "Thank you for showing me what real work looks like. E.C." Maya folded it carefully and placed it between the pages of her recipe notebook, beside her own messy handwriting from weeks ago. She did not know it yet, but this quiet connection, the borrowed minutes, the coffee, the shared words was about to shift both their lives in ways neither could predict. The next week passed in a blur of polished glassware, endless checklists, and nervous anticipation. The Aurelia Grand Hotel was preparing for the mid-year gala, a night that drew every major investor in the city. Maya worked double shifts, her hands raw from scrubbing silver and carrying trays. The manager, Mrs. Kendall, barked orders from the ballroom doorway. "No mistakes tonight, people. We are performing for the elite, not the everyday crowd." Maya nodded silently, tying her apron tighter. She had no idea that one of those elite guests would be the same man who had once eaten her lemon honey loaf in the mezzanine lounge. By 7 in the evening, the ballroom glowed like a dream. Crystal chandeliers hung low, catching every movement in pools of golden light. Waiters glided between tables with champagne trays. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Maya moved quietly among them, checking each setting for symmetry. She looked at the long mirrored table near the stage, where the head investors would sit. The name card read, Mr. Ethan Cole. Her breath caught, and she whispered to herself, he really came back. While she adjusted the napkins, a familiar voice spoke behind her. You always make the smallest details perfect. She turned, startled. Ethan stood there in a dark suit, the same calm smile that always made her forget her words. Mr. Cole, she said quickly, straightening. I told you to call me Ethan, he said. And tonight I suppose you should not be serving me. You deserve to sit down for once. Maya shook her head, half laughing. I belong behind the tables, not at them. He studied her for a long second, his gaze steady but gentle. You belong wherever your work takes you. That is what makes you extraordinary. Before she could answer, Kendall's voice sliced through the air. Tran, stop distracting the guests and get back to your station. No. Maya lowered her eyes. Yes, Mrs. Kendall. Ethan's expression hardened slightly. Do not speak to her like that, he said evenly. The manager froze, realizing too late who she was addressing. My apologies, sir. I did not. But Ethan was already walking away, leaving Maya with a racing heart and a confusion she could not name. As the evening unfolded, Maya watched him from afar. He moved easily through the crowd, shaking hands, answering questions, but every few minutes his eyes found hers. When the speeches began, she slipped into the side corridor to catch her breath. The air smelled faintly of roses and candle wax. From inside the ballroom came the sound of applause. A host's voice echoed through the microphone. Please welcome our lead investor, Mr. Ethan Cole, to present our Community Recognition Award. Maya smiled faintly, proud in a strange, quiet way. But before she could return to the floor, she felt a sharp tug on her arm. Kendall pulled her aside, her eyes narrow. Do you think he cares about you? You are a hotel maid, Maya. Do not confuse a smile with a promise. The words stung more than she expected. Maya pulled her arm free. Maybe I do not have what you have, Mrs. Kendall, but at least I do my job with heart. Kendall scoffed and walked off, heels clicking against marble. Maya turned toward the doorway just as Ethan stepped up to the podium. His voice carried across the ballroom, steady and clear. This hotel stands not because of investors or marble floors, but because of people who care, people who notice the details, who treat strangers with dignity. Tonight, I want to thank one of them personally. The crowd hushed. Ethan looked toward the service entrance, directly where Maya stood frozen in the doorway. Her name is Maya Tran. Oh? Murmurs rippled through the guests. Maya's pulse pounded in her ears. She wanted to disappear, but Ethan's expression was calm, inviting, unshaken. In that moment, the entire room turned toward her one quiet girl, in a simple uniform, while the man she once scolded for being late offered her the spotlight she never asked for. The sound of her name filled the grand ballroom like a sudden note in a silent song. Maya stood frozen at the doorway, clutching the corner of her tray. The spotlight swept across the guests and found her. Dozens of eyes turned in her direction, executives, reporters, and strangers dressed in glitter and silk. Her throat went dry. Ethan smiled from the podium, calm and sure. Miss Tran reminded me that respect is not about titles or wealth. It is about how you treat people when no one is watching. He paused, holding up a small folded paper. This note came with a simple meal on a late night. It said, "Thank you for your patience. That one act changed how I see this entire place." He motioned toward her. Maya, will you come here, please? The crowd murmured encouragement, some clapping softly. Her heart thudded so loudly she could barely breathe. She stepped forward, her shoes whispering against the marble. When she reached the stage, she lowered her head. Sir, I do not think I belong up here. Ethan handed her the microphone gently. You belong exactly where your effort brought you. Oh, the applause swelled, but Maya could barely hear it. Her eyes stung with tears she fought to hide. I was only doing my job, she said, her voice trembling. And that, Ethan replied, is what makes it beautiful." He presented her with a small gold pin bearing the hotel's emblem and a certificate of recognition. Cameras flashed. For a brief second, she caught the reflection of herself on the giant mirrored wall, her uniform plain, her hair imperfect, yet her expression alive with disbelief. The applause faded into the hum of music as the event moved on. When the speeches ended, Ethan found her in the side hallway where the crowd could not follow. "You handled that better than most executives I have met," he said softly. She looked up at him, still shaken. "Why would you do that? People think I do not belong in a room like this." He met her eyes, steady. "Maybe it is time they see who really makes this hotel worth investing in." Her pulse slowed. The noise from the ballroom softened into the distant melody of the string quartet. "You embarrassed me," she said, but her voice held no anger. "I wanted the world to know what I already knew," he said, "that you are extraordinary." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was fragile but full. Finally, she said quietly, "You should not care so much. People will talk." "Let them," Ethan replied. "Truth has never needed permission to be seen." "Oh." Maya gave a small, uncertain smile. "You sound like a man who has everything figured out." He laughed softly. "Trust me, I am still learning." Just then, Kendall appeared from the far end of the corridor, her expression sharp. "Maya, the investors need the dessert service. Now." "Yes, Mrs. Kendall," Maya said quickly, turning back toward Ethan. "Thank you for what you said tonight. I will never forget it." He nodded. "Neither will I." Okay. As she disappeared into the kitchen, Ethan watched her go, an unexpected ache settling in his chest. For the first time in years, the applause and the flashing lights meant nothing. What stayed with him was the quiet courage in a girl who believed kindness still mattered. Later that night, long after the gala had ended, Maya stood alone in the empty ballroom. The candles had burned low, and the floor smelled faintly of roses and champagne. She touched the small gold pin on her uniform and whispered, "Maybe mistakes are just beginnings in disguise." Somewhere in the darkened mezzanine above, Ethan watched her leave, his mind turning over the same thought. Neither of them knew it yet, but that night's reveal, his identity, her truth was only the first crack in a wall that would soon shatter completely. The following morning, the hotel was buzzing with gossip. Staff whispered in the corridors, and trays clattered louder than usual in the kitchen. Maya felt every glance that followed her, every half-hidden smirk. Word had spread that she was the maid who stole the spotlight. Kendall's voice snapped through the break room. "Enjoy your fame while it lasts, Tran. Investors move on. People like us do not." Maya kept her head down, folding linens with trembling hands. The gold pin gleamed faintly on her uniform, no longer a source of pride but of discomfort. By noon, she found an anonymous note slipped into her locker. "Promotion by pity. Must be nice." Her stomach twisted. When her shift ended, she took the subway home, the noise of the train drowning her thoughts. Her mother noticed her silence over dinner. "You look tired, Maya." "I am fine," she said softly. But she was not. She had never felt so visible, yet so small. At the same time, Ethan faced pressure of his own. In the executive lounge, a senior partner cornered him. "Ethan, that public stunt last night? Praising a hotel maid? Investors think you are distracted. They want reassurance you are still focused on profits." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Kindness does not ruin profits." "Maybe not," the man replied, "but emotions do." When the meeting ended, Ethan stood by the window overlooking the gray city. He could still hear the echo of Maya's hesitant voice, could still see her standing beneath the chandelier's glow. He realized what he had done. He had dragged her into a spotlight she never asked for. That evening, he called the staff floor phone. Maya answered quietly, expecting another task. "It is Ethan," he said. "I am sorry for what happened today." She hesitated. "You do not need to apologize. You meant well." "I wanted to help," he said. "But I may have made things harder." "Oh." Her silence confirmed it. Finally, she said, "Sometimes attention feels like punishment." He swallowed. "Then let me fix it." "You cannot fix people's minds," she whispered. "They already decided who I am." When the line went quiet, both of them understood the truth. Good intentions were not enough. The world they lived in had rules, and breaking them came with a price neither was prepared to pay. Rain swept across the city the next evening, streaking the glass windows of the Aurelia Grand Hotel. Maya's reflection trembled in the water on the marble floor as she clocked in for her night shift. The whispers had not stopped, but she refused to let them decide her worth. She told herself, work first, always work first. She went about her duties quietly, collecting trays, resetting tables, polishing glasses until her fingers ached. When she reached the mezzanine lounge, she found a sealed envelope resting on the counter. Her name was written on the front in clean handwriting. She glanced around. No one was there. She opened it carefully. Inside was a short note. Meet me on the rooftop after your shift. I owe you a conversation. It was signed EC. Her heart beat faster. For a long moment she considered ignoring it. But curiosity and something deeper hope pulled her upstairs when midnight came. The rooftop garden was empty, except for Ethan, standing beneath the soft glow of a terrace lamp. The city stretched below them, lights shimmering through the mist. He turned as she approached. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I almost did not," she replied. "People already talk enough." "I know," he said. "That is why I asked you here. I need to make things right." She folded her arms. "You cannot erase gossip." "No," he admitted. "But I can give you what you actually deserve a chance." He pulled a folder from his coat and handed it to her. Inside were sketches, layouts, and a title printed in bold letters. Morning Light Café, a community project by the Cole Foundation. Maya stared at the pages. "What is this?" "It is your dream," he said simply. "Funded, designed, and ready for your direction. I want to open a cafe inside the hotel. Your recipes, your menu, your name. Not as charity, but as partnership." Her hands trembled. "You cannot mean this. I am not qualified." "Oh, you are more than qualified," he said. "You have the heart this place needs. Let me handle the paperwork. You just do what you do best. Make people feel human." The wind lifted her hair, carrying the faint scent of rain and coffee from the streets below. "Why me?" she asked. Ethan looked out over the skyline. "Because kindness built this dream, not money. You reminded me what leadership is supposed to mean." She swallowed hard, tears rising. "If I say yes, people will think you are helping me because of pity or worse." "Then let them think," he said gently. "We will let the results speak for themselves." For a long moment, neither moved. Then she said quietly, "All right, but I do not want special treatment. I want to earn it." "That is the only way it will work," he said with a smile. The rain eased into mist, wrapping the rooftop in silver haze. Maya looked down at the folder again. Her name, printed in gold ink, shimmered beneath the lamplight. "I kept your first note," Ethan said softly. "The one that said, 'Thank you for your patience.' It reminded me that grace matters more than pride." She met his eyes. "And I kept yours. The one that said, 'Thank you for showing me what real work looks like.' It reminded me that being seen is not the same as being used." He nodded slowly. "Then we understand each other." They stood there in the quiet rain, two worlds finally meeting in the middle. It was not a rescue, not a favor, but an act of redemption, born from mutual respect. When she left the rooftop, Maya carried the folder close to her chest. For the first time in years, her steps felt lighter than the storm that had tried to drown her. 1 year later, sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of the Aurelia Grand Hotel lobby. The air smelled of cinnamon, butter, and roasted coffee. A small sign beside the entrance read, "Morning Light Café, managed by Maya Tran." The name was written in graceful gold script, the same font that had once marked a folder on a rainy rooftop. Inside, guests filled the tables, tourists, business travelers, even hotel staff from the lower floors. The atmosphere hummed with quiet laughter and the clinking of coffee cups. On the wall hung a framed piece of paper, the original note that started it all. "Thank you for your patience." Underneath it was a small brass plaque engraved with the words, "Kindness built this place." Maya moved behind the counter, wearing a simple white apron. Her hair was tied back neatly, and her hands moved with confidence. She handed a fresh cup of coffee to the security guard who once shared his dinner break with her. "Still strong enough to wake the city?" he asked with a grin. "Stronger," she said, smiling. "It tastes like morning." A small bell above the door jingled. When she looked up, Ethan was standing there, no longer the distant investor in a dark suit. He wore a light jacket, his expression calm, proud. "You did it," he said quietly. "We did it," she corrected. "You believed in it when no one else would." He shook his head. "I just built the walls. You filled them with life." She handed him a cup of coffee. "On the house," she said. He took a sip and smiled. Still balanced. Still honest. Olive crouped. For a moment they stood together, watching the morning crowd move through the cafe. Sunlight spilled across the tables, turning everything golden. "I have something for you," Ethan said, reaching into his pocket. He placed a small velvet box on the counter. Inside was a simple silver ring engraved with 2 words, "Morning Light." Maya stared at it, speechless. "Ethan," he interrupted softly, "this is not about wealth, not about gratitude. It is about partnership. In business, in purpose, and maybe in something more." Her eyes filled with quiet tears. Around them, the sound of the city drifted in horns, laughter, footsteps, all blending into a single rhythm of life continuing. She nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered, "to all of it." He slipped the ring onto her hand, and the world seemed to pause for a heartbeat. The cafe lights flickered against the window, reflecting 2 figures standing close enough to share the same breath. Ethan glanced at the framed note on the wall. "One small mistake," he said, smiling. "That was all it took." Maya laughed softly. "Maybe it was not a mistake. Maybe it was a reminder." He looked at her, eyes warm. "That kindness can change everything?" "That," she said, "and that real success is measured by the people you lift with you." Outside, the city glowed in full morning. Customers came and went, carrying the scent of fresh coffee out into the busy streets. Maya turned the sign on the door to open. The day had begun again, bright, honest, and full of the kind of light that never fades. And somewhere in the gentle hum of the cafe, their story lingered, a simple act of patience turned into a promise, a meeting born from a mistake transformed into a love that finally felt real.